Jay Livingstone, State Representative.
Thank you. And it's great to be here. My name is Jay Livingstone. I'm currently the State Representative for West End, Beacon Hill, Back Bay, parts of Cambridge, and live just a short distance from here. And Dan, I am raising a family in this. It's great to do. My wife just gave birth to our first child, Henry. She's doing fantastic. I've been in the state legislature the last 3 years. I'm the only legislator in the race. It's interesting hearing some of the other candidates talk about what they would do, and because I've been doing much. And it's interesting hearing the different perspectives between a municipal official and a state legislator. In the legislature, some of the things that I've worked on have been, first of all, early education. I think there isn't a better place we can spend our money than on kids between 2 and 6. It is amazing to me the research that shows if you can get a kid between a high quality early education between 2 and 6, they go to college at a higher rate, graduate high school at a higher rate. No crime at all. By every metric, they do better. And so this has been my top priority. I'm pushing bills to do university and trying to get the money for it. But also in each budget that I've been in the legislature, I've advocated for a line item to give working families the money to give their kids that crucial opportunity. As a result of the budgets that have happened in the last few years, over 5,000 kids whose parents wouldn't be able to give them that opportunity to receive. That's, I think, a great thing that the legislature can do, and I've been proud to lead on that issue. Also, criminal justice reform. I'm a former prosecutor in Middlesex County, and in that role I saw the ravages of drug abuse, which have only gotten more prominent in the news and more deadly since I left that office. And there are so many things we can do. There isn't a silver bullet out there, and I've been proud to be part of the legislative process to make insurance mandatory for drug treatment. It's currently 14 days, and we should do more to limit opiate prescriptions. First-time prescriptions. I was proud to vote on that just a couple weeks ago. We've increased drug treatment funding by 65% since I've been in the legislature. In addition to that, though, we need to reevaluate our criminal justice system and make it a more rehabilitative model. I joined with several legislators last year. We formed what we call the Harm Reduction Caucus. There were 6 of us at the first meeting. It's grown to over half the legislature to advocate and really re-examine everything from arrest through arraignment in court, through what happens during up to disposition, sentencing, and then especially the transition from if somebody is incarcerated from jail back to society. And because of our advocacy, also getting rid of a lot of the mandatory minimums, especially for nonviolent drug offenders. And because of our advocacy, the governor, speaker, and Senate president have reacted and then brought in a national organization to review our criminal justice system. And that review is happening right now. And I'm excited the next term that will have the results of that study, and that will be one of the biggest issues. What does our criminal justice system do? In addition to that, there's other social justice that can be done. One of the most surprising issues is equal pay for women. It's still an issue. It's been illegal for 70 years in Massachusetts. You can't pay people differently based on gender. Yet still, there's a persistent wage gap. I've joined with the Women's Bar Association and Women's Community International, and joined together and we drafted legislation we think will make a difference. I'm the lead sponsor in the House of Representatives. I'm proud to have my colleague Aaron Mikowitz as a co-sponsor, along with over 100 of our other colleagues. The Senate unanimously passed the legislation. And it's been a fantastic effort. Hopefully we'll get it through the House before any of you, all of you vote for me on April 12th. That's not flat. But I've been working hard in the legislature to help those who need most help. We've increased public transit funding, so we'll have new red line, orange line, and green line trains, the first trains in 40 years. That was my first vote in the legislature. increased the minimum wage, with stabilized the unemployment system without cutting benefits or eligibility. And I've been proud to be part of those efforts and trying to lead them all. But I understand the issues, a lot of issues facing North End. I walked here, 10-minute walk, and and I've been involved working with Representative Mike Woods and the other elected officials on making sure that when development happens, it makes sense for me. That this area in particular, especially just outside the North End, has been one of the hottest areas in the world. And making sure that whatever results is consistent with what we want for the Navy. And without speaking up, you don't have that say. And I have consistently stood with the Navy to make sure that we get the results we need. So, thank you.
Sounds like Vice Chairman.
Mr. Representative, thank you for being here tonight. I asked you the same question I just asked previously, because I know you've been in the legislature for a couple of years now. You had a different committee in the Senate, other than Ways and Means. What would you pick, number one? Second question. I have two now, because now, we all, our state representative, Aaron Michaelowicz is here. We all love and support him here and support what he does in the neighborhood. Probably on the same page with a lot of issues. How do you think, if you were to be the next senator, how do you think you get along with the state representative being under the direction of a new Senate president?
For committee, the committee I'm most excited about is the judiciary. And like I said, I think that's going to be one of the biggest discussions that happens next term. And there may be some at the end of this term. But we're going to reevaluate the criminal justice system. We'll have the information to do it. And I want to be part of those efforts. And I think I've worked as a defense lawyer and as a prosecutor. And the perspective I bring, I think, is unique for the people in this race.
Since you work at both, how do you feel about minimum mandatory sentencing?
I think we should get rid of it. I get along great with Aaron now. I don't see how that would change as a senator. I try to be thoughtful in my decision making and reasonable with people I deal with. When you do that, get treated well.
Hi, again, Francine, again, and I'll ask primarily the same question, but just, I've had some knowledge also of the Senate, having worked for one of the best Senate presidents in the district, Bobby Travellini, who represented this district. And my saying is the North End is unique, and that's why I'm asking. There's been a lot of changes with development, with other issues going on in the area. And I'm just trying to get an idea in my own head, in my own mind. Yes, we have general problems with transportation and, like I say, development, maybe opiates and whatever. But I just want to get a sense of what's new out there since you've been traveling the district, now, immediate, and what you're hearing from people throughout our specific district. What you consider, what they are talking about as their number one issue. I know we share the concerns of any other districts throughout, but I'm concerned about the North End and in my district and what, senatorial district. What do you hear, if you have to say number one and number two, what are the real major issues that you've been confronted with or hearing people talk about?
I mean, people are concerned about the quality of their life. And the way that plays out in this issue is different depending on where you are in the district. In the peninsula of Boston, development is a huge issue because of the huge influx in money and development. It's happened. In the last 5 years, 70% of the economic development in Massachusetts has happened on 5% of the land mass. And much of that is Kendall Square, if you can see, including the area just outside the North End, in parts. And in grappling with that change, it displaces people that can't afford to live there, making sure that continue to have economically diverse neighborhoods, which are the ones that thrive the most, and making sure that people have a place to have open space, that people can get to their work in a reasonable fashion. that people can, and that people feel safe in their neighborhoods. One of the, I mean, it's been incredible, the stories I've heard on the doors about the opioid crisis. I was in Winthrop last week and talked about my work as a prosecutor, talked about increasing drug treatment, and the father there broke down crying, talking about his daughter, who had been in and out of treatment, was in jail that day, and how she had robbed the neighbors, that she had robbed other relatives, trying to feed their addiction. And get into how do we break that cycle? How do we stop the recidivism rate? And which will make our community so much safer. And so I think, I would say overall, the quality of life, but there's very specific things that fall into that depending on where you go.
Thank you.
I think you know it, but just regarding local control, and Jason elucidated on a certain specifics, but with the late night hours, et cetera. And I know you mentioned some of it in your opening remarks, but if you want to expand upon that.
Yeah, you know, I was very concerned with the mayor's proposal last year, and worked closely with Representative Mikowitz and my other colleagues in the Boston delegation. And I think we reached a good compromise where the city received local control of the appointments of the liquor board. The city of Boston received additional liquor licenses, many of which were specifically targeted for neighborhoods that needed that economic development. And but the overall cap remained in place, and that we didn't do the extended late night hours. One of the things that concerned me the most when talking to the mayor about the late night hours proposal, particularly for the city of Boston, was that he wanted it on a pilot program basis. And I think what that meant was certain neighborhoods were going to have to deal with this, other neighborhoods weren't. And it was going to impact, it didn't seem very fair to me. It didn't seem fair to bars that wouldn't have access to it. It didn't seem fair to the neighborhoods who would have to deal with the people greater concentration of people drawn to their neighborhoods, causing late night crimes. And so I think the compromises that we reached on that were appropriate. If the city needed additional liquor licenses. One of the things about the unrestricted liquor licenses, particularly in Boston, is they find their way to certain neighborhoods. This being one, downtown, much of the senatorial districts, plus the seaport. And they'll never find their way to Dorchester, Mattapan, Roxbury, which is why there were so few there and so many downtown. And anytime we adjust that, we are careful if we do want economic development in some of those other neighborhoods, that we make clear that that's where the license is going, because otherwise.
I think that's something you will have to watch out for if you're elected, is the needs of the business district versus the concerns of the residents.
Correct.
Very few people may have got full liquor licenses, some people like mine, some people do. It's the juxtaposition of like how much of the saturation of it.
Yeah, it's always a balancing, and I think the city has done a good job in handing out the licenses that it was awarded part of our process last time. Again, those haven't all, it was on a 3-year cycle, so those haven't all been distributed. But after that time, it's great need in the city of Boston. We should do that.
You're a prosecutor, so I'm going to ask you this one specifically. Sorry, I didn't ask the other two. The ballot question on marijuana.
I get this and no one else does?
I know, I'm kind of screwing you right there.
I think we should do this. I think we should regulate the tax like alcohol. We've legalized it. It's a non-criminal offense to have marijuana. It's basically an unenforceable civil infraction. You get a ticket, people throw it away. Often typically there's no consequence right now. In order to buy the marijuana, the people who are faced with consequences for possessing it buy it from a criminal network. When I was a prosecutor, some of the most violent murders happened involving marijuana dealing. It's one of the most profitable drugs to sell. And when I talked to the state troopers that investigated those crimes, I remember one saying that 75 out of 76, 77 out of 78 murders that he had investigated involved drugs, involved the dealing in marijuana. At one level, we've basically legalized it. I'm not sure why we're still continuing to have problems with screwing up prices. And so, if you regulate it and tax it like alcohol, but also treat it like alcohol, because under the current regime, we're also encouraging kids between 18 and 21 to use marijuana instead of alcohol, as possessing alcohol is a crime, using marijuana is, and that doesn't make any sense to me.
I have a question. One of your opponents says there are fingerprints, of course, all over the domestic workers' bill of rights legislation. In your literature, you, of course, indicate that you passed the legislation, although you were not a co-sponsor of the legislation. Can you just tell us what you did, detailed past that, or what your participation was in that legislation?
Sure. I wasn't a
Just state your
co-sponsor.
name and
Gail Miller, I'm a resident of the district, although a resident of East Boston.
I was not a co-sponsor of the legislation. It was filed before I was elected to the House of Representatives. The co-sponsorship period is about a week at the beginning of the term. After that, you cannot actually become a co-sponsor. But I did support the legislation in the legislative process. I regularly talk with Mike Moran, who's the lead sponsor in the House of Representatives, asking what I could do. I advocated with leadership, and particularly there was one point where there was a dispute between the House and the Senate about the minimum wage bill, and found out the possibility of using the domestic workers' bill of rights as a vehicle to pass the minimum wage bill. And I was proud to advocate for that, and we ended up doing it. So the vote, one of the best votes that we've taken, we increased the minimum wage. We stabilized the unemployment system without cutting benefits or eligibility, and we passed the domestic workers' bill of rights. Right after that, there was, as part of those discussions, there was also a lot of talk because the minimum wage wasn't where some rest of the legalization point. They wanted to cause issues with the bill, and I also talked to them about what a great result we're having, passing all three bills. After, there was a conference committee report, and the conference committee report had the minimum wage and unemployment without benefits towards the bill, and I went back to Mike and asked how I could help, and continued to advocate for the domestic workers.
So that's time's up, but